Hello and welcome to the YesRef podcast with me, Ollie Ballinger.
And me, Ben Williamson.
And more excitingly, another episode for season 2 of the YesRef podcast. Ben, we're into a new year. How's things?
Yeah, banging. I just trying to catch up from remembering what we have to do in a podcast and at work. Because this, side note, is our first week back at work, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We were kind to ourselves this year and gave ourselves a small amount of time off over the festive period. Eh?
Much needed.
For sure. Now, before we introduce our next guest, we have a little favour to ask you. Can you go and hit that magic subscribe button? It'll help us immensely in our journey to continue sharing more about sports officiating, their stories and their experiences. Now, we are absolutely delighted to welcome our next guest, an experienced hockey umpire, now named the Umpire Whisperer, a retired hockey player, and someone who has founded FH Umpires. Keely, welcome. How are you?
I'm wonderful, guys. I'm so excited to be here. I'm bouncing off the walls, so thanks so much for the invite.
No worries. So early as well. You were saying it's 9 a.m. where you are?
9 a.m. Yeah, you can see the morning sunshine. For those of you watching on YouTube, the morning sunshine is cutting across, and it's not too early. I've done some of these recordings at 5 a.m., 4 a.m.
Wow.
This is nothing.
Oh, we can reconvene. We can come back tomorrow morning if you want.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Tremendous. Well, why don't we get into your love for hockey? Where did it all begin for you?
Oh, goodness. My love for hockey. So being from Canada and a city called Calgary, if you haven't heard of it, it's the 5th largest city in Canada. Hockey isn't exactly a big sport around here. In fact, it's a tiny sport. Most people have no idea it exists. And they all call it field hockey here, which is why my brand is FH Umpires, Field Hockey Umpires, just so I can include everybody in my local area, sort of thing. But I was starting grade 10, and that's the first year of high school in my area. And if you don't know where grade 10 is, I was about 14 years old.
Did you see that on my face? I was like, oh my God, what's grade 10?
Yeah, I saw the blank. Yeah, okay. It was fine.
A little bit of panic.
And I knew it was going to happen. And I was in this new school. I didn't know anybody. And I just gone through, a pretty tough time in my life where I lost my mother to cancer. And I'd lost all of the activities that I did. I flute, jazz dance, tap dance, babysitting, marching band, all these things, because my life had just fundamentally changed. And I was really lost. And I was walking down the halls of my high school in the spring, and I saw this flyer for tryouts, field hockey team. And I thought, I bet the popular girls don't know about this sport. Maybe I have a shot at making this team. I was 4'8", not very athletic, all that kind of stuff. And literally on a whim, I thought, well, I'll go out and try. I played tennis and, was kind of I wasn't a team sport person. So I go try out for the team. And luckily I was right. Not many of the popular girls knew about the sport and they weren't there. And I think 18 players tried out, which meant that I made the roster of 18, and it was fantastic. But my love really came from the formative time. Was we were on a fitness run going around the school. And, back in the very early 90s, everything was about going for the long runs. Right? We didn't know anything. And of course, I was at the back of the pack, and the coach dropped back and she was running next to me. And Kathy Keith was this grizzled, just, she could chop wood with her jaw. She was just so hardcore looking. And she looks down at me from her immense height. She watches me for a few minutes, laboring, trying to keep up with all these fantastically thin, athletic girls. And she says, "You're not going to quit, are you?" And I looked at her and I was like, is that a compliment? Is that a
challenge?
diss? I have no idea. But I said, no, I'm not. And with one sort of offhand remark, she formed my identity. And everything about hockey for me has been not quitting. And that no matter how bad I was...
Is that just hockey? Is that now like something that's ingrained in you? Just don't quit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has really born into everything else, because up until that time, I didn't know what it was like to not quit, because I had just quit everything accidentally. But, I felt like I had quit everything and I'd lost everything. And there was this one thing where somebody showed me that there was value in persistence. And what I built throughout my career as a player was this resilience to understand, if I really worked hard at this, if I showed up earlier for practice than all the other players, if I stayed later, if I did more reps at hitting the ball, receiving, shooting, that I'd actually improve. And that was something that was very novel to me. So hockey taught me that I could do stuff if I tried. And that was really, really important. And yes, it's something that now infuses everything in my life.
I think that's
Awesome.
incredible to go. You just fancied a tryout. You needed to do something. You needed to find some focus, and you've had this incredible multiple year experience that you've just built on and built on.
Yeah.
But kind of, it sounds like you almost fell into it. It was just something to do at the time. Is that fair?
Exactly. I didn't have any friends who said, "Hey, Keely, like, let's come try out for the team." The same thing happened so that summer after I played my first year in grade 10, I tried out for the Alberta team, because why not? I mean, who was going to tell me no? And 18 players tried out for the team. I made the team. I played under 14 Alberta. And then that started my, 16-year career as a provincial player. And like, I need to be very clear about this. I was really, really not good. Everybody says, "Oh, you played university, you played Alberta." I really wasn't good. But what I loved about it was the meditation of playing, the ability to put everything else, didn't matter what was going on in my life, I could put that outside. And everything was about the moment and doing everything I could, which often included cheating, in order to compete and be in the game. And I found community, I found friendship, I found myself in playing. And then that led me into the whole umpiring scheme of things.
For me, I think it's just a great story that you didn't go because you had loads of friends and it was cool to do. You didn't go because someone was pressuring you into it, or was like, "Oh, you'd be really good at this, go and do it," which I think sadly we see some people do nowadays. I think it's just really nice that you fell into it and then fell in love with it, and it gave you what you needed at the time. I think that's so underestimated nowadays when young people join sport.
What about for you, Ben, relating back to refereeing? Did you fall into that?
I was a rubbish player. I definitely tried playing football. I was horrendous. I got injured when I was 10 or 11. I hurt my knee. I was on crutches for a bit. And then I just didn't really want to play anymore because I knew I was rubbish and I didn't want to get hurt again. So I tried at referee. Someone said, "Well, why don't you try refereeing and stay in the game?" 17 years later, we're still here. Still trying. Still rubbish, but still trying.
Just doing the math. You're 28. Okay, got it.
You've been kind to him then,
yeah,
Keely. He's
28.
He's the other side of 30.
28. Ollie, shut up. 28. 28. Yeah.
Okay, my math is terrible. Nobody should ever do public math.
No. It's never good. No. So you mentioned early on in your conversation about like field hockey in Canada is quite a small sport.
Yes.
What is your most popular sport, just in terms of like sharing with our audience? Is it?
It's ice hockey. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's where I was gonna suggest.
Yeah, that's our dominant thing. So everything for me is about fighting. When I'm here, it's about fighting that whole that hegemony that it has on popular culture and understanding of what is acceptable to do in sport and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just impossible. It's a massive sport. It's like football is everywhere else in the world. Ice hockey is what that is for us.
Football, that sport that you love, right?
Yeah, that sport I love.
Yeah.
So before we started off, I said to Ben, "Yeah, this is going to be really fun because you guys are going to find out how much I dislike football." In fact, the running joke that I've been playing in my community forever is that people aren't allowed to say the word in our community forums. So on the Discord server, nobody's allowed to say that word. It's sports ball. Words, because words have power, right? You don't give power by saying the name. So sports ball, and that can encompass, it can encompass rugby and cricket and all the other sports that all the people love to talk about instead of focusing on the most important thing in the world, which is hockey. I just say, oh, it's sports ball. And then people try to say, yeah, sports puck and sports slide and sports, it's really fun. It's just a hilarious joke that we like to play.
It's good. It's good. It feels a little bit like what we have here in England between football and futsal. Futsal is very much an indoor sport, and it is a minority sport in that sense. And obviously football, I would say, is England's most popular sport. Yeah. Everybody loves it. So, futsal has to fight hard internally against the communities and everything. People love the game, the game.
Yeah, that's interesting because we have an indoor format of hockey, indoor hockey, and sixes. But it's part of the sport. It's not sort of seen as an outside thing. It's one of these alternatives, and a really exciting one, and one that actually, obviously in my area, it's very, very popular because we play for 6 months of the year as opposed to 4 months of the year playing outdoor because of climate. So it ends up being in Western and Eastern European areas and things like that, it's almost more popular than the outdoor format. So but it's not a rivalry. It's a complement and a great addition to the sport.
Yeah, I think there's an element of rivalry here in England with futsal and football, but futsal complements football, it's a great development tool, and people in South America grow up playing the game as they do in Europe, as they do in Australia, So it's interesting just having the comparisons, with different sports in different countries. Circling back to refereeing, though,
yes.
You retired as a player.
I did.
And then you thought maybe now and again.
I retired as a competitive player, and
sure.
I've still been playing recreationally. I'm not playing season right now at the moment. I took this indoor season off, but I'm still playing at this advanced age, and still love playing.
Come on.
But you did the right thing. And you come over to the side where we are umpires and sports officials, right? Because that is the best community to be involved in.
Agree. It was a really fun story too. So I was at senior nationals. I think I was 29 at the time.
Okay.
And so senior nationals is our top domestic competition. So
okay.
I'm playing for Alberta. We're in the middle of the tournament, and we're playing the Ontario B team. And up until this time, I was a right or left defender. I had never scored for Alberta or for my university team. And we're 4-2 up on Ontario B. And I'm the injector on the penalty corner. I don't know if you know anything about the sport, but set piece. I'm on the end line. I inject the ball at the top of the circle. Shot comes in. Rebound comes off the keeper straight at my stick. I have an open goal. I shoot into the goal, score. I practically run around the pitch with my shirt. I was so freaking excited. And so 5-2 win. I really contributed to that. I walk off the pitch, and there's this guy standing in front of me blocking my way. And he's tall and he's bald and he's got the black trousers on. He's an umpire. And he says, "So now that you finally scored a goal, are you going to quit this playing malarkey and become an umpire?" And I was like, "Hi, who are you?" And his name was Ian Gibson, and he was a top umpire at the time in Canada. And so we start having this conversation where he's telling me things like, "Yeah, we've been watching you this entire tournament because we've heard you umpire at home, and you are a magnificent cheat. You know exactly when the umpire is not looking at you. You know exactly how much pressure to put on somebody to knock them off balance without making it look that way. You know how to manipulate the rules so that you get the free hits. It's incredible." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm really good at this." It was
now a goal scorer as well, right?
And now a goal scorer. Yes, absolutely. But it was the only way I could compete because I wasn't fast. I wasn't skillful, but I was really smart. And they saw it, but without ever seeing me actually umpire a match, they plucked me out and said, you should be an umpire. And I said, well, I mean, come on. Have you seen the clothes that they wear? Like, so gross. Why would I want to join that? And he said, well, you could go international. I was like, hi, tell me more about this. So that was the start of it. Within a year, basically, I went from being, and I'll try to make it general so that the levels sound relevant. I basically went from being a level, we'd have 3 levels in domestically in a country, and I went from level 1 to level 3 in a year. And
is that heard of? Is that as many people done that?
No, it's not. So the tournament that I had just finished playing at, the year later, I was umpiring at. So I was umpiring all my friends.
Wow.
I was umpiring all the people, and I was just like, hi, what's going on? And I was the most obnoxious 30-year-old you'd ever seen. I was such such a jerk. And I had no idea what was really going on. I just thought, oh yeah, this is normal. This is fine. And a few months after that, I got sent away on tour with the Canadian national team to Scotland and Wales. And then a few months after that, went to my first international tournament, which was the Central American and Caribbean Games in Puerto Rico, and got my FAH badge.
I just want to pause there. We will come back to this point, I promise you.
Sure.
But let's take it back then to, you met Ian Gibson, you're going to be great. And you went, yeah, I fancy a little bit of this international stuff. That sounds great.
Sure.
What's the journey look like? What's the training look like? Do you get your first 5 or 6 games? Give us a bit of a rundown from that, because that's got to be a hell of a difference, right? From not so elite playing, in your words, to then turning it around and dropping the stick for a whistle.
Hugely. But for me, and at that time, when was this? This was early 2000s. So I went to my first tournament in 2002. So when I did the senior nationals in 2001, I was still a very active player, and I was still training like a player. So I was still doing my interval runs and sprints and things like that. So that was my fitness training. And things were so disorganized and so not systematic, the way that you have in your sport and in your country, that I just did my thing, knowing that when I showed up at the first international tournament I was going to, I'd have to run the beep test, and I had to get, I don't know, level 8 or something like that. And I remember doing that test, and level 8, and I was like, hey, this is great. Can I keep going? I was just like, yeah. And I don't know, the umpire manager stopped me at level 10 or something like that and said, yeah, Keely, save it for the matches. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't a specimen. It was just the standards weren't really that high. So my training was to keep umpiring the local matches that I was doing. I went out to Vancouver, and I got my level 2 basically in a weekend by going out and umpiring, I don't know, 3 or 4 matches there. And they were like, yeah, you're good. Check. And that was it.
Wow.
And I'm not going to say I was a natural, because I don't think anything is natural. I think the skills that you build through other experiences in your life, like theater or debate club or arguing with your parents or public speaking, anything like that, they all can be drawn upon, and they come into you as an official on the pitch. Mm-hmm. And so I had those skills. And also I was fearless. I had no worries that I'd go out there and I was like, yeah, I might be bad, but I won't be, first of all. And second of all, who cares? Nobody is going to die because I make a mistake. I have to make 450 decisions a game. Do you think that one call that I make is going to actually be the difference? No, that's a bunch of
imagine if we could turn that into football, Olly, and futsal. Wouldn't that be great if everyone had that ethos? I'm going to make X number of calls. No one's going to die. If I get the kick in the wrong way, the throw in the wrong way.
Yeah, but isn't that in itself like a a reminder to everyone, to like all the sports officials. Isn't it a wonderful thing to have the attitude of, do you know what? It doesn't matter if we have to make 500 decisions and we get 5 wrong. Actually, as much as we put an emotional feeling into the game and into that experience of officiating, like, we're going to make mistakes. We're human. And like, I can remember when I was a young teenager making refereeing decisions that actually I probably put too much pressure on myself to get everyone right. You know, I might have an element of trying to be perfect in too many things sometimes, you know, which isn't a helpful trait, but you know, we are who we are today.
Do you think because you didn't have years of experience in officiating, that helped with your, it'll be what it'll be. Like, I'll just go and do my game. I'll do 450 calls, and if I get one wrong, no problem. Does that help? Do you think if you'd been umpiring for 10 years to get to the international stage, do you think that builds the pressure? Whereas you didn't have that. Do you think that helped?
I don't think it was that so much as I simply didn't believe in the external pressure that comes from the game itself.
Okay.
As Ollie was saying before, I really did expect that I was going to get all the calls right. And I was absolutely perfectionist. And I mean, of all my friends and colleagues, and I've done dozens of interviews with the top FIH umpires now, and every one of them is massively self-critical and very much put that onus on themselves for perfection, which we're never going to achieve. And I absolutely am like that. I'm not happy when I make mistakes. I'm very unhappy, but I'm also not crushed with other people's opinions because, hey, my mistakes a game is still way better than anything you can do. And how many mistakes did you make in not receiving that ball, not being able to score that open net goal, not making that save, whatever the case might be? Those are game determining mistakes. Nothing that I have done is. And I know that because I have such a strong mindset in I'm going out to serve the game, I'm going out to make it better. I am part of the artistry of creating something amazing. Because I work so hard at that, I feel very confident that that is the result that I'm going to be able to achieve. And I hold myself accountable if I ever let myself down in those standards.
The thing that I really want to know here, because it's really interesting, this, which is the qualification that you have got in umpiring. Is it hockey or is it field hockey? And then is there a governing body, like, so one organization that runs it, or is there multiple governing bodies?
Yes. So hockey is run by the International Hockey Federation, or the FIH, because it's French and they have to distinguish themselves from ice hockey. And anyway, long story. It's actually the 100th anniversary coming up this week, I think, or maybe it just passed a couple of days ago, of the FIH being incepted. And they are the overall governing body. There is no splintering or competition or anything like that. Underneath the FIH, there are continental federations. So I'm a member of the Pan American Hockey Federation, or PAF, I'll refer to it as. And then I have my national association. So I had my, basically, I got to my level 3, or it was called a Canadian rating, in Canada. And then PAF was responsible for appointing me to PAF level international tournaments. So continental tournaments that involve just participants from this region, South America, Central America, North America. But the badge that I received, the certification, is provided by the FIH. It's an international certification. And at the time then, and they keep monkeying around with it, but it's basically 5 levels that you can ascend to in order to get to the very top, which is basically your world panel umpires who umpire at the Olympics and World Cups. It was weird. I went basically in the span of 18 months from level 3, from level 1 to FIH, and I was like, hey, this sounds like fun. Let's keep doing this. Do I get to travel? Do I get to see hockey? And so that was the thing. I sound very flippant because it's funny. But what I rapidly fell in love with in terms of the international umpiring was back in the 2000s, 90s, all that stuff, as I was a player, we didn't have access to the game internationally. It did not exist. The only thing I ever saw of hockey was what I participated in my country. And my coach for the Dinos was on the national team. She played at the 92 Barcelona Olympics. She was an absolute legend. And I had a poster on my wall of her playing, but that was all I ever saw of Olympic hockey, because we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have any kind of social media. There were no TV deals because we're such a small sport, especially in Canada. And none of that international hockey was being played in my country. So I couldn't see what it was until I actually went out there, and I was like, this is cool. And I get to watch this from on the pitch. And I get to actually interact with the best players in the world. I umpired, I don't know, she was 7-time FIH Player of the Year, Luciana Aymar from Argentina. I umpired her a dozen or more times. I got to be yelled at by Luciana Aymar. It was amazing. So that was just, it was such an opportunity. And I know this is something that you two talk about all the time, and the opportunities that you have to participate in the game at a level that you would never reach as a player. And I absolutely was never going to reach that as a player. So I would really encourage anybody even thinking about it that's the possibility that's there. If you got a brain in your head and you're not scared of your own shadow, try officiating, and you might be really surprised at how much fun it is.
When Ian Gibbon said to you, you could be international, did you believe him?
I don't think I put a lot of stock in it. No, I just said, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. I really didn't know what it meant because I couldn't see it. And I knew the international umpires in Canada. We had, at the time, 2 of them. And both of them didn't like me. I mean, they didn't like me as a player because I was that person who looked at them and I was like, you don't understand the rules but well enough. And I was a real jerk. And I didn't ever yell at umpires, but I certainly showed them what I thought of their decisions sometimes. And that has completely fallen away out of my personality, by the way. But I didn't ever see them umpiring internationally. I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea. And I was like, okay, oh, you want to send me on a trip? Sure, I'll go. Sounds like fun. Let's give it a try. And now the world is so different. The umpires that I mentor now and coach, they have access to hundreds of international matches a year if they want to see those. They have access to all the regional club matches. They have top European domestic competition, and they can see these umpires out there and how amazing they are and the work level that they put in and the sacrifices they make. And now we have the see it to be it happening in our sport, which is really, really wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that, I think, a little bit here in the Premier League recently with some trailblazers.
In sports ball, isn't it? In that,
absolutely. I mean, I read Pierluigi Collina's book. Whenever I have to sit down and watch some EPL with my dad, who's a big Man U fan, by the way, sorry, I have to apologize to my dad. He's English, by the way. All my family is English, so I come by this quite naturally. But I sit and I watch the referees because it's fascinating to me. And there's a lot that I learn by watching their body language, by watching their positioning. Like, how does a central referee run patterns, and what are they doing in order to create their angles so they can see, and how are they anticipating the play and all that sort of thing. And I'll have to admit that I've taken a couple of pages out of that positioning book and worked it into a positioning method that I teach in my community. And it's really, really effective. So
yeah, it is great watching. And I would encourage anyone to go and watch anything, because you can learn from so many different people. Yep. One thing I was interested in, just going back ever so slightly, like refereeing internationally, and ultimately you got the best seat in the house, right? Because you can watch the sport that's closest to you from your whistle, but you also get paid to be there, right? So it's a very privileged position. And my question is, what does pay look like for international hockey umpires, and then down to the domestic and recreational level?
It looks a lot like this. So if you're
For those
watching on YouTube, or if you're not watching on YouTube, I have just given you the big fat zero. We do not get paid to umpire internationally. We get our expenses. We're usually, but we've gone through phases in the sport, and this definitely happened during my career, where PAF would appoint me to a tournament, or Field Hockey Canada would, and they'd say, yeah, but you have to cover your own travel. And I'd be like, what?
Wow.
And you're in this terrible position because if you turn it down, it's going to have a negative impact on your career, because you're the umpire who didn't go, and you don't get seen, and you don't get graded, and you don't get the experience and all that sort of thing. And I was extremely lucky that I was in an economic position at that time in my life where I could afford to fund myself. And I took every opportunity. And in fact, I would sometimes cast out and say, hey, do you guys need an umpire? I'll pay for myself to go, and I'll fly over there. I had a relationship with Durham University because I spent 6 years umpiring in the National League in England, and Durham was going on a tour of the Northeast of the United States. And they said, hey, do you want to come? And I said, sure, I'll come. And I paid for myself to fly over to the Northeast United States, which was more expensive and a longer trip than it is for me to get over to London, and spent 2 weeks hanging out with these awesome players and had a great time, basically doing these sort of, club level, but internation matches. And it was just super fun, super fun. But that sort of climate and that expectation and the lack of funds in our sport means that only the privileged get the opportunities. Was I the best umpire in Canada? Probably not. Was I the best umpire who had the money to take advantage of the opportunities? I was. And that's not right. And
no, that's a shame.
No, you're right.
But I think it comes with any part of progression through anything. There's lots of right time, right place, right game, right person watching, right opportunity, and all of these ducks have to fall into a row. So I think there's lots of other things that come into it other than can you kind of economically support yourself to do so, right?
Yeah, more or less. But it's something that really drives me in the sport. And I don't want to jump to your final closing question, because I know what your closing question is, and I already have my answer prepared. So we're not going to do that now.
We're not going to do that yet. There's a bit more that I want to get out of you. You mentioned some time officiating in England. You spent 6 years on the National League in England.
Yes.
How did that come about? Did you travel a lot? Did you move back over? How did that work?
Yeah, so it all came about. Well, there were two motivating factors. I was at a tournament down in California, and an Irish umpire manager, who is an absolute legend, Olympic and World Cup gold medal umpire from Ireland, named Ray O'Connor. And he was my UM for the tournament. And I had just gotten my badge. So this was 2003, 2004. And he pulls me aside, and in my worst accent, he says, so Keely, you think you're a bit of a big deal, do you? And I was like, no, I do not think I think I'm a big deal. And he says, you've got to get yourself out of Canada. The hockey there, and you're not going to get better unless you get out. And I said, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do this. And I just didn't feel that sort of pressure and impetus until I went to a tournament in the summer of 2006. And it was another Central American and Caribbean games. And I was in the Dominican Republic, and I had the worst game of my life. I was on the pitch for a crucial pool matchup that was going to decide who was going to cross over into a semifinal between Netherlands Antilles and Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a long story that I've told in a few live streams, usually when I'm drinking. And basically it was a nightmare. A fight broke out in the game, which is kind of unusual for hockey and very unusual for women's hockey. And I missed red cards. I didn't handle the fight properly. It was the worst. I got suspended for a day of matches afterwards.
Wow.
Because my performance was so poor. The entire PAF executive was there seeing this because they were convening a whole meeting. And I walked off the pitch after my last game and I thought, yep, my career is over. This is it. This is it. And then I sat in the airport about to fly home and I thought, Ray O'Connor told me I had to get out of Canada. This is probably a good time. I sent an email to 2 women that I knew in England who I'd worked with at tournaments, Julia Gill and Jay Knuckles. And I wrote to them individually and I said, I'm coming to England next month and I'm going to umpire in the National League. Can you help me get set up? What do I need to do? All that kind of stuff. And that was it. I made the decision before I even got on the flight home that this is what I needed to do to salvage my career. And it was rough. It was very interesting because nobody had ever done that before. Nobody had ever decided that they were going to be that foreigner who just came in for the season and then went home and then came back and then went home and came back. But that's what I did for 6 years. And it absolutely saved my career. It made me into the umpire I am. I learned about community and all that sort of thing. So, they say out of the worst experiences come the best things. And that was definitely what happened for me.
It's an awesome story. So did you get involved in university sport in England?
I did because I think I'd been there for a week or so. And I was bored because the season hadn't started because I went too early. I didn't even know when hockey started in England. I just went. And I went to stay with my aunt up in Yarm. So my family's mostly from the Northeast. And I was up where hockey really isn't super, super populous and all that sort of thing. It's mostly in the South, which is, very true for everything in your country. And I wandered over to the local university because I heard they were pretty good. And it was Durham University. And I went on a Tuesday and I just drove over there in my aunt's car and walked over to the pitch and there was a training going on, thankfully. And I was like, hi, head coach. Hi, my name's Keely Dunn. I'm from Canada and I'd like to umpire for you. I'm an international umpire. And the head coach, his name's Gavin Featherstone, absolute legend, immense character, just I wouldn't even have the time to be able to tell you how fascinating this guy was. But he grabbed me and he's like, you're an international umpire? Come with me. And I started doing anywhere between 1 and 3 home matches a week at Bucks. And at Durham, the ones, both on the women's side and the men's side, were, they were in the National League. Okay. So I was doing National League hockey on the Wednesdays, as well as doing eventually once the season started, National League on a Saturday and a Sunday, and I was doing the men's, and that was incredibly, incredibly formative. Ridiculously good training, and it was everything that I needed in order to get my skills up and my management good and all that sort of thing, and I loved it.
Tremendous.
Was there much of a difference from refereeing back in Canada to refereeing Bucks and English National League?
Other than the quality of the hockey being in a different stratosphere, yeah, it was pretty much the same. No, totally different.
Other than that small
totally
little detail.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the hockey was tremendous. The culture of the sport over there is just so different. I had my first experience getting heckled and getting banter from all the students behind me. And I was just like, this is amazing. And they're all calling me names and Yank. They love to call me Yank because they all figured out that I was Canadian. So the biggest insult you can level at me is to call me American. And I would turn around, I'd shake my fist at them trying to be funny. And I remember one time that one of the students called out behind me asking how much time was left in the half. And I put up my fingers. I said, yep, 2 minutes. And I was doing that. And they all started just pealing laughter. And I was like, oh my God, no, I mean 2 minutes. I mean 2, like this, 1, 2, like that. So, there were things like that, but I had so much fun in that environment. Fans, crowds, the Bucks was great, but the way that that matches would be played and then there would be teas afterwards. And I was like, why would I want to drink tea after a game? I'm kind of hungry. No, you're going to get fed. Oh, okay, fine, teas. And how you would sit around with the teams and the coaches after the games and talk about the match and gather their feedback and build a relationship. And then on a Monday, oh my God, Mondays, my phone would be ringing off the hook because all the other umpires that I had met would ring me up and say, Keely, how'd you get on this weekend? And I'm like, you care? Like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So the building the community with the players and the coaches and that collegial atmosphere, and then building community with that network of umpires, so different from here. And I've been trying to bring back elements like that, for the last, how long has it been since I left? 11 years now, holy smokes. But it's hard because geography, numbers, cultural, learnings, all those sort of things. You can't just import and copy and paste it. It doesn't work that way.
No. You progressed quite well in Bucks, didn't you? I believe you umpired the final of a Bucks competition. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did a couple finals. It was great. Lots of fun. I think they were always at Sheffield at the time. And
yes.
Yeah. And I just remember, I remember the students chanting, give us a wave, umpire, give us a wave. And I turn around and be like, hi, I'm the queen of the world. And yeah, they were.
Did you tell them there was 2 minutes left as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I was always, even when there was 5, I was like 2. Yeah, those were incredible. And just being able to have that practice with fans and things like that helped me on the international stage quite a bit, because although not a lot of my games had massive spectators, sometimes they did, and sometimes they were loud, and I could use all the
And you got paid for the Bucks game, so that must have been different for you?
No
payment for the Bucks fixtures.
Well, that's quite a new thing, I think.
That changes it. Okay.
Yeah. Back then, we didn't get paid anything.
Oh, you'd have to come back and do some Bucks games now. You get 30 quid a game or something.
Oh yeah, I think those days are a bit behind me. I think, even though I know there's lots of people. I really believe that my best contribution now is in helping other umpires get to their top potential and really teach people how to enjoy the process of umpiring, because
we will come on to that as the very next point. I just have one more question just to kind of finish off your umpiring career, if I may. You were fortunate enough to referee some other finals across the world. Is that fair?
You know what? I didn't do a lot of finals. That just wasn't the way that my umpiring progressed. So I had the goal of getting to the Olympics, and like most international umpires, I wanted to get to the top and the pinnacle. And that's why I went to England, not just to save my international career, but also could I actually progress further? And I made it to about the top 20 in the world, but didn't get to that. I needed to be top 16. I needed to get to that level in order to get appointments to the very top tier stuff. And I just didn't make it. I had started too late in my life. I was too Canadian. I was too all these things. And and so throughout my career, there weren't a lot of sort of international finals. Yeah, I've done lots of finals in Canada, and that's fantastic and great. I reserved a couple of big finals at so we have reserve umpires. It's not like a fourth official, I think that or the fourth referee that you have in football, but you're literally sitting there waiting if you need to get called on because one of the pitch umpires gets injured. Did some matches like that, but I really had some amazing experiences and got to learn from all of those top umpires, and got to see just hundreds and hundreds of matches that if I wasn't directly participating in, I was in the stands and I was living the moments. And yeah, that's all contributed to where I am now.
Some really special memories and some special moments throughout the career then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you find yourself in is like we were just talking about before we talked about the conclusion to your career, is you want to help people. And is that where FH Umpires was born?
Actually, the brand itself was born in 2006 when I first went over to England, because I realized that there wasn't anything out there on social media that was sort of pulling together, say, the new rules, new interpretations that were coming out. Nobody was promoting umpires and saying, hey, this person got this promotion, and, this team did, this association did this great thing for their umpires. There was nobody doing that. And I started a podcast with my friend John Ritzak, who was an international umpire at the time here in Calgary as well. And that's where that started. It wasn't until sort of 2018, after I had been retired for a little bit and I'd gone through that whole grieving process, where I sort of embraced my defeat and I got over blaming everybody else for what had happened to me in my career. And I decided that I didn't want to be like so many of my colleagues and friends who had just walked away from the game when they didn't achieve their goals and ambitions and just said, screw this. I'm so mad. I want to get my life back. I thought, I know I could have done more. And I knew I had more potential, and I could have gotten, maybe I wasn't going to do the gold medal at the Olympics, but I could have gotten there. I think with just different support and with more community at the international level and more knowledge. And if somebody was on my side, I mean, what could I have done? And I decided that instead of being bitter about that, if I could do that for somebody else, then all of those 16 years I devoted to international umpiring and all the years before that, domestic, that it wouldn't be a waste. And other people deserved. If I deserved it, other people deserve it. So I needed to be that person for other people. And that's when the idea of FH Umpires being an educational enterprise was born.
I think something that just stuck out from what you've said, and I can't get my head around it, is the way you trying to get over. Well, you said almost like you failed, trying to get over the devastation of not achieving what you wanted to when you did so many amazing things.
I know, right? I should be a little more grateful. I am, and I am now. But I think, all of us who really push ourselves to get to the top, we do have these high expectations of ourselves, and we set these goals and everything that I sacrificed. I mean, I can't even go into everything that went into me going to England for 6 seasons and all the things that I gave up and sacrificed and the losses that I had. And I needed to do it, and I'm glad I did it. But you do have that feeling of unfulfilled, potential. And, I ended my career on 92 in senior caps. So you get caps as an umpire in hockey, and if they're full senior internationals, they count. And when you get to 100, you get a golden whistle. So there's a ceremony on the pitch, and some big FIH official comes out with a whistle and a little box and flowers, and everybody applauds. And I ended my career on 92. And there were people who knew that I was 8 matches away and I didn't get appointments to tournaments that were right there, right for the picking. All I needed was 2 tournaments to get to my 100. And they were like, nah, not for Keely. So there was, these feelings of bitterness and resentment. And I was entitled to this and I should have had this. And it took me a couple years to get over that absolute, horse crap in order to realize that the best thing that I could do out of all this was to turn that into something that I could do for other people. And
what is that today?
that is being the most amazing umpire educator in the world. FH Umpires is now, I guess you would pretty much categorize it as a private umpiring academy. So the same way that you
Sure.
have private player academies, that's what I do for umpires. And a lot of what I do is free. I have weekly live streams on YouTube that I act out and swear occasionally and analyze clips and share things that I've learned and have conversations with umpires. And then I have a Discord community where people can come in for free and we hang out and trade gifts and meme each other to death and answer questions and support each other, cheer each other on, celebrate our successes, lift each other up when we've had a bad day at the office. And then inside that, I have a paid membership and paid courses as options where I can really get in depth, and I've really invested a lot of time and energy into what I can share and what I've learned in that. And yeah, this is my full-time thing. This is what I do.
Awesome.
Do you think you've shared your own successes and celebrated your own successes enough?
What? Are you my therapist?
I mean, it is getting a little bit deep, isn't it? I mean, he keeps turning this corkscrew.
I know you keep trying to make me into this. Yeah, I'm super uncomfortable with this. No, of
I
course
apologize.
I haven't.
That is not the purpose.
No, you're absolutely spot on, and I need to hear this because I am really bad at that stuff because I am hard on myself. I did want more. Just like everybody else, I feel like a little bit of a fraud every time I step out there and I'm like, hi, I'm going to teach you everything. And I know I come across as this super confident person, and I am at my core confident in what I can do. But this is hard. It's hard to go out there as an official and know that at least 50% of the people who are watching that game are going to be pissed off at every single decision you make. Every single one. And so the resilience that you need to have about being questioned and the need to be self-critical and the need to question yourself all the time, that is why I have been able to succeed and why I am as good as I am. But you're right. I don't turn that into maybe showing people by example what it's like to celebrate yourself. And I need to model that for other people. I don't think I need it for myself, but I should be modeling that for everybody in my community. Like, it's good to share your stuff because some of them that, I made it to the level 2 panel C. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm going to put this all over the live stream and, put that in the server. And they're like, oh, really? Do you really have to? No, I just wanted you to know because I wanted to thank you. And I'm like, no, everybody needs to know this. Every single person.
The small wins matter. The small wins matter, right?
Absolutely. But it's not about necessarily the win. It's about the acknowledgement that there are stages in your journey. And all of them are equally important, but that is just another step in the journey. It's an affirmation that you didn't quit. It's an affirmation that you are serving the game. And those are the most important things.
Yeah, it's really important to get done. Really important.
Now, we are quickly using up our allocated time. So we are going to rapidly move this forward into what I would like to call the quickfire question section, when we're going to ask you a couple of quickfire questions. And they don't have to be one-word answers, do they, Ben?
They don't, no, and it's not a therapy session. We can move that straight past. Some quickfire questions.
I'm going to kick this off with what's your favourite sport to watch or play other than hockey?
Is there other than hockey?
Football, Man United with your dad.
No. I watch 300 to 400 hockey matches a year, easily. Like, wow. Do I have time for anything else? I would have to say ice hockey. I used to be a season ticket holder for the NHL team here in Calgary, and yeah, I still enjoy watching the sports hockey.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
And we have said that, well, we know that you still play occasionally. So what's your favorite position to play?
I love playing sweep. Being the sweeper, I like now just to tell all the young players to do all the running and tell them where to go. I am
like a conductor.
Exactly. And I'm a passer. I'm not a one-on-one player. I'm a passer,
Okay.
so I like to be able to quarterback the play from back there.
Stand still, play it out. Great.
Exactly.
Who's your sporting hero?
Oh, one.
Well, maybe one is a player, one is a sports official or an umpire.
Oh boy. I guess I would have to say Deb Covey, my coach at University Dinos, because she was extraordinarily disciplined and she was hard on us without being cruel in any way. She just had her expectations and wanted to see them, and she showed me what hockey could be.
Okay.
For sure. As an umpire, oh boy. I'd say that my hero right now is a current FIH international named Sarah Wilson from Scotland. She is, in my view, the best umpire in the world of any gender. She is absolutely the pinnacle, a fantastic person. And I'm delighted anytime I get to watch and analyze her games because she is fantastic.
I'm going to be strict on choosing one here because I'm that kind of guy. What is the one thing you love most about your sport?
Challenge.
The challenge.
It's an immense challenge. Yep. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I went to law school. I was a stepmother for 18 years. I've done some really hard things in my life, and nothing has been more challenging than umpiring hockey.
And final question, what would you say your biggest sporting achievement is?
Building a community of people who love umpiring the way that I do. I am so proud of that. And it's a little disgusting how much I love my people. And yeah, I couldn't be happier to be able to spend my time professionally supporting them and teaching them and learning from them.
I expect they love you as much as you love them.
Maybe.
Sure they do.
For sure. Well, Keely, I would have to say it was very insightful listening to your background as both a player and a sports official. And I think you've done some awesome things in both career pathways, like scoring a goal in the final. Hadn't scored previously. That's a nice little tick box.
Right?
It wasn't a final. It was a pool match, and it meant nothing.
Pool match. Sorry. But it was at the highest level domestically, right?
Yeah, against the B team, though. Is it?
Playing it down.
Potato. But also, your rapid success through being an umpire. No, you went from being someone domestic to going up onto the international stage, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. 92 matches internationally is a huge achievement, so you should be very proud of that. And you've been very lucky to experience what you've experienced across the world. So
absolutely, yeah, very fortunate.
Yeah, and I think you've given us a real insight into what hockey looks like in Canada. And then, it's really nice to understand what your experience was for the 6 years you had in England, really insightful. So I want to say thank you. We're grateful for you spending the time to join the YesRef podcast and share your story.
It was a real privilege and delight talking to you two. I love the podcast. I either watch the YouTube or I listen to it when I'm out on walks. And even though I am not a fan of the sports ball, I enjoy learning about different approaches and what you're doing professionally to develop the ability for officials to execute their appointments more efficiently and taking a big admin load off people, I think is fantastic. And I'm a big fan of that and big fan of everything you're doing. So keep going. I look forward to talking with you more in the future. And thanks again.
Thank you very much. Just final, we'll give the floor to you, Keely, so you can just share your socials. How can people get involved? If we've got some young or new or any type of umpire in hockey that wants to follow you or interact with you, the floor is yours to share how they can get involved.
You bet. So you can find me everywhere on the socials at FH Umpires. Just plug that in, you'll find it. Big YouTube channel, big for me, where I live stream every Wednesday depending on where you are in the world. Sometimes it's Thursday. Look, I'm not here to judge, but you can join in the live stream and come in and chat. And then the Discord server, if you go to fhumpires.com/DS for Discord server, that'll take you right into the belly of the most amazing community you'll ever find of hockey umpires. And we have a ton of fun in there and very much trading knowledge, supporting each other. So I'd love to see anybody who's interested in getting super nerdy and having a good time with umpiring come and join us, because it's great.
Keely, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much for your time, and we will definitely speak again soon.